even have to answer this. The media has never called it the Kung Flu. Calling it the Chinese coronavirus and calling it the Kung Flu are very different
The media and your network specifically
called it the Kung Flu.
The media and your network specifically have repeatedly used the term China virus and Wuhan virus, and then gone on to deride the president as somehow using a term that they themselves have never used. So we can go through CNN's history. I'd be more than happy to go through CNN's history. On February 9th, you guys talked about the Wuhan coronavirus. On January 23rd, you guys talked about the Wuhan coronavirus. On January 22nd, the Wuhan virus. I can write it all out for you and detail it for you in an email.
Kaylee,
yes,
you've got to admit that. It is not the same thing as calling it the Kung Flu.
I first want to just follow on what you were just talking about with Berman. So obviously the president made the decision to nominate Clayton for the job, and that led to the sort of kerfuffle that we saw over the weekend. But there's this decision to remove Berman from the post before Clayton was nominated, or before Clayton was either nominated or, more importantly, confirmed. And so I think the question is, why did you take the acting U.S. attorney out of his job before there was a Senate-confirmed replacement?
Because there's an intent to put Clayton there, and so there will be an interim individual, an acting attorney, as we work to get Mr. Clayton in that position.
Yeah, but I guess the question is, why didn't he continue in his position until Clayton was confirmed?
Because we are hopeful that Clayton will be confirmed. We're not leaving him there. We're putting an interim person in place. No investigation will be affected by this, as was made clear by Attorney General Barr.
All right, then,
Yes,
sorry,
Steve.
I wanted to ask about the president over the weekend said that he didn't impose sanctions on China over the Uyghur internment camps because he was worried about his ability to negotiate the trade deal. But since the trade deal was signed in January, China, as you mentioned earlier, not only has acted in ways that you frustrated with on coronavirus, but the president has announced their behavior in Hong Kong, and they've failed to live up to many of the tenets of the trade deal itself. At the same time, the president signed an executive order on international religious liberty. So I'm wondering when, if ever, is the president actually going to sanction Chinese officials under either the original legislation or the legislation he signed last week?
So I'll get an update for you on that, but what I will say so far is, and you noted this in your question, that he signed legislation to hold China accountable for the treatment, for their treatment of the Uyghurs and other minorities in China. But he also previously has imposed visa restrictions on Chinese officials for roles in China's treatment of Uyghurs and other minorities. He's blacklisted companies that were complicit in China's treatment. He has taken strong action, but I will get back to you on that. Yes, Steve.
Is the president happy with the size of the crowd in Tulsa?
The president was very pleased with the rally. I was with him, and I just have to say, these media reports that he was somehow furious on the plane, there is no grounding in fact to that. I was with him on Marine One on the way there, on Marine One after. He was very pleased with how the rally went, and the media reporting on this prompted me to go around and ask some of my colleagues if they saw something different. And I spoke with Dan Scavino, who was in the Beast with the president right after the rally, and said he was very energized, having been around the American people. So he's quite pleased with how the rally went. And even a political pundit wrote to him that it was one of the all-time great speeches they'd ever heard. We saw him expose his own humanity when he described the wonderful West Point story. The speech made his message so clear and compelling that no one could possibly have missed it, and it was so great to be out of the swamp and in the country. And those comments are how the president feels too.